Ever feel like you're kind of stuck, like you're just going through the motions?
Oh, absolutely. That's something we all grapple with,
Yeah.
right?
It's like Camus was reading my mind when he called it a ridiculous habit in the myth of Sisyphus.
He really dives deep into that feeling, doesn't he? That sense of absurdity we all encounter at some point.
And today's deep dive is all about unpacking that. We'll be using excerpts from Camus's The Myth of Sisyphus to explore this idea of the absurd.
It's such a powerful, thought-provoking piece of writing. It really makes you question everything.
Right. Like, why do we keep pushing that rock up the hill when it just keeps rolling back down? And speaking of heavy questions, Camus doesn't shy away from tackling suicide head-on.
And he approaches it in such an interesting way. He doesn't frame it as some societal problem, but a philosophical one at its core.
It's like he's saying it's the ultimate existential crisis.
Exactly. We're these beings who crave meaning, purpose, some kind of grand plan. And the universe is just indifferent.
Which, let's be honest, can be a tough pill to swallow.
It really can. That clash, that tension between our yearning for meaning and the universe's silence, that's the heart of what Camus called the absurd.
So where do we go from there? If we accept this idea that life is inherently absurd, what keeps us from just giving up?
Well, that's the surprising part. Camus doesn't see the absurd as a reason to despair, or worse, he actually sees it as a call to action, a reason to really live.
Okay, now that's a plot twist I wasn't expecting, but what does that even look like, living in the face of the absurd? Do we just embrace chaos and call it a day?
It's not about giving into chaos, but about recognizing our own freedom within it. And that's where things get really interesting. He rejects those easy answers, like religion or blindly following ideologies, those leaps of faith people take to try and make sense of it all.
So no leaning on external validation, no searching for meaning in a self-help book.
Not for Camus. He's all about turning inward. It's about creating your own meaning in a world that might not offer it up on a silver platter.
So it's not about finding meaning, it's about making it.
Exactly. And that's a pretty radical idea when you think about it. It's about rebelling against the absurd by forging your own path.
That's quite a lot to unpack, but it sounds fascinating.
It is, and it leads us to one of the most intriguing figures in Camus' philosophy, Don Juan. He's kind of like the poster boy for the absurd life.
Don Juan, the legendary lover. I'm not sure I see the connection to existentialism just yet. Help me out here.
Think about it. Don Juan isn't searching for the one, right? He's not out to find some kind of eternal love or lasting meaning in a relationship. He embraces the fleeting nature of, well, everything.
So he accepts that nothing lasts forever and just enjoys the ride.
Precisely. He's not afraid of the temporary nature of pleasure, of life itself. And that's a key part of what makes him an absurd hero to Camus. He doesn't try to hold on to illusions or deny the reality of death. He lives fully in the present moment.
And he seems to do it with a certain flair, like he's not weighed down by guilt or judgment.
You're right. He doesn't let those things hold him back. Don Juan really embodies a radical acceptance of the absurd. He makes his own rules, lives by his own terms, and refuses to be bound by societal expectations.
So we're talking about living authentically, passionately, and unapologetically.
You've got it. And that's just one example of how Camus explores the absurd. He also uses other illustrations to drive this point home, like the world of acting, or even the experience of living in a bustling city like Oran.
So it's not just about seducing your way through life.
Not at all. It's about finding meaning in the everyday, in those seemingly insignificant moments that make up a human life, even if they don't fit into some grand cosmic plan.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, take acting, for instance. An actor, they embody a whole bunch of different lives, but all in this really compressed time frame, They experience the full spectrum of emotions, the highs, the lows, the whole shebang. But they do it with this underlying awareness that none of it's permanent.
So it's like they're holding up a mirror to the absurd itself, embracing the temporary, fleeting nature of our own existence.
Exactly. And it's not about trying to escape from reality either, which is an important distinction for Camus.
So it's not about escapism. It's more like confronting it head on.
You got it. He saw art as a way to really grapple with the absurd, not avoid it. Because art, when you really think about it, reflects the human experience in all its messy glory. The joy, the suffering, the beauty, the despair, it's all there.
Makes me think about that actress, Adrienne Lecouvreur. Remember her? She was on her deathbed, and she chose to embrace her art, her craft, over, religious absolution.
Oh, wow. Powerful example. What a statement.
Totally. It's like she was saying, this is my truth, This is how I find meaning in this crazy, absurd existence, and I'm sticking with it, even now.
There's that courage again, that audacity to be authentic to yourself, even when it goes against the grain. Camus really admired that.
So we're talking about living authentically, bravely, even in the face of absurdity. But where do you find that kind of courage when everything feels so, I don't know, random and overwhelming?
It's a good question. And, Camus found it in some pretty unexpected places. He talks about his time in Oran and how he would kind of stumble upon meaning in these small, simple moments, like feeling the warmth of the sun on his skin or taking in the vastness of the sea.
It's so easy to think we need some grand, life-altering experience to feel truly alive.
Right. But Camus is saying that those moments are all around us if we just open ourselves up to them. It's like when you just stop to really appreciate a beautiful sunset or savor that first sip of coffee in the morning, those little bursts of joy.
It's about being present, isn't it? Not dwelling on the past or stressing about the future, but just being here, now.
Exactly. He even describes the feeling of swimming in the harbor at Oran, being surrounded by the sights, the sounds, the smells of the city. It's all about those sensory details, fully immersing yourself in that experience of just being alive.
And maybe those moments become even more meaningful when we remember that they don't last forever.
Couldn't agree more. It's like he's saying true happiness isn't about reaching some distant finish line. It's about finding those moments of joy along the way.
I'm starting to get it, but it still feels like a lot to process, How do you hold on to that joy, that appreciation for the present, when life can be so, well, so absurd?
It's a fair point. And, Camus doesn't shy away from the darker side of things either. He even talks about going back to Tapasa, a place that used to hold a lot of meaning for him, only to find that it had changed, just like he had.
He talks about how he'd lost that youthful sense of innocence, how he now carried the weight of experience, and how he saw both the beauty and the suffering that come with, really living.
Yes. And he realizes that to really embrace life, to be truly authentic in the face of all the absurdity, you have to accept both the light and the dark, the joy and the sorrow. You can't just cherry pick the good stuff.
Reminds me of that quote, even a happy life can't exist without some darkness, or else the word happy would lose its meaning. It's about embracing the full spectrum of human experience.
Absolutely. And there's a powerful message there for all of us, really. You can't escape suffering or loss or disappointment. It's all part of the deal. But by acknowledging those darker parts of life, it allows you to appreciate the joy, the beauty, even more.
So it's not just some abstract philosophy. It's about how we navigate the ups and downs of our own lives, all the messy, unpredictable stuff.
Exactly. And it's about finding a way to live authentically, even joyfully, even in a world that often feels chaotic and meaningless. Which brings us to another important part of Camus' philosophy, the role of the artist in all of this.
The role of the artist, right. In a world that often feels like it just doesn't make sense, what's the point of creating art in the first place?
Well, for Camus, artists had this almost sacred duty to be witnesses to the human condition. It's not just about making things that are pretty or pleasing to the eye. It's about holding up a mirror to the world, showing us all the good, the bad, all those messy contradictions that make us human.
So it's less about delivering some grand message and more about reflecting that raw, honest experience of being alive.
Precisely. It's about bringing that authenticity, that realness to everything you create. Capturing those complexities, the absurdity of it all, that's what gives art its power.
It's like Camus is challenging us not just as artists, but as people, to be more present, more engaged with the world around us, and maybe even to play a more active role in shaping the meaning we find in it all.
I love that. It's about taking ownership of our experiences, finding those moments of beauty and connection, even in a world that can feel fragmented and chaotic.
Finding beauty in the ordinary, yeah. It's a powerful thought, isn't it?
It really is. And it's a good reminder that even though life might not come with some prepackaged purpose, it doesn't mean we can't find our own meaning, our own reasons to celebrate being alive.
It's a lot to wrap our heads around, that's for sure. But as we kind of resurface from this deep dive into existentialism, I'm feeling a strange mix of, awe and possibility. It's a lot to sit with.
I get it. Camus doesn't exactly give us easy answers, but he gives us a framework, a way to navigate the absurdity of existence and find those moments of meaning, even in the midst of chaos.
He reminds us that even in a world that may not have an inherent purpose, our lives can still be filled with passion, with beauty, with a deep appreciation for the simple fact that we exist at all.
And that's a pretty incredible thought to carry with us. So as you head back out into the world, remember to stay curious, stay engaged, and maybe even embrace a little bit of that absurdity along the way. You never know what you might find.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Until next time.